The Tilley and Billy Show is brought to you by Spreads.ca, Canada's newest online casino and sportsbook. Why gamble playing with the other sites when you can play all your favorite slots and table games at the casino made for Canada? Spreads.ca has over 500 games like Mega Moolah and Live Dealer Blackjack. Head over to the sportsbook, check out all the best betting markets. When signing up at Spreads.ca, enter the code TILLBILL25, make a deposit, and get a 100% match bonus and a $25 free sports bet. Just for registering at Spreads.ca, you'll get 10 free spins for $1 million. Go to Spreads.ca and sign up now with the code TILLBILL25. Billiards Academy and Sports Lounge, family owned and operated since 1971, oldest pool hall in the city, a great family-friendly place to watch the Leafs, Jays, Raptors, and soccer. Half-price wings night on Monday night. Wings are fantastic. 485 Danforth Avenue, 416-466-9696. Go to billiardsacademy.ca. COSA, Central Ontario Standardbred Association, providing a united voice for harness people at Ontario tracks. Check out your benefits today at COSAonline.com. Live racing year-round at Woodbine Mohawk Park, Flamborough Downs, and Western Fair. You've got real estate needs? Call Dan Parker at Sutton Group Heritage Brokerage, 905-439-5108, or go to danindurham.com. Whether buying or selling in Toronto or Durham region, list with Dan, become a fan.
And welcome, everybody, to the Tilley and Billy Show. I'm Joe the Swiss Tilley. There's Billy the Greek in Scarborough. I'm in Newcastle. And, of course, today's special guest, you've heard all about him, ladies and gentlemen. He's been on the show before. He is a longtime co-anchor of Primetime Edition of Sportsnet Central, 20 years in the business. Ken Reid, ladies and gentlemen, good to have you back, Ken.
Hi, I feel like I'm Elliot Friedman in one of these little boxes. This is cool.
Yeah. Well, it's good. It's great to have you, man. So, Kenny, we're going to get right to talking about your books here. Now Ken's covered everything from the Stanley Cup Final, the Grey Cup, the Super Bowl, the Olympics, and he's also written some national bestsellers, including Hockey Card Stories, which was brilliant, and we had you on there when you came out with the Eddie Shack book, along with Eddie, who's no longer with us, and we miss him dearly. And of course, the just released, hot off the press, One to Remember. Stories from 39 NHL players who scored one big league NHL goal.
There it is.
All right, there it is.
Look at that.
Hold on. Keep it there. So tell us about One to Remember.
Okay.
Where did you get the inspiration for this book?
Well, it's a little like One Night Only. Look at this. I'll take up the whole screen with it. It's a little like One Night Only. So One Night Only was about guys who scored, or guys who played in a single NHL game. So the obvious extension is guys who scored a single NHL goal. So I got to thinking, how many guys scored a single NHL goal? And like you guys, I'm a dreamer, and I always dreamed of scoring a goal in the NHL. And I thought, how many guys actually did it? And what's it like to only get one? So I went into work and I asked our crack stats guy, Steve Fellon. 5 minutes later, he brought me a list of the 400 or so guys who scored a single NHL goal. And I thought, wow. And then we did the math. About 6,500 men have skated in the NHL. That doesn't include goalies. 1,500 of whom never scored a single goal. So I thought, hey, let's look at the positive. The 400 are among the goal scorers. So went down the list. There were some names I recognized. Obviously, there were a lot of names I didn't recognize. And I thought, well, they have to have some stories. And you go down the list and you find a guy and you do a little research and you realize his only goal was assisted by Gretzky and Curry. And you go, well, there has to be a story there. And you find out, this guy's the all-time pro penalty minutes leader. He has a goal. There has to be a story there. So away I went, dialed up the old research machine, the internet, and started calling and got a book out of it.
Okay, so tell who plays alongside Wayne Gretzky and Yari Curry and gets one NHL goal?
So it was a guy named Mike Forbes who'd come up with the Bruins. He played quite a bit with Don Cherry's Boston Bruins. Scored a goal, an exhibition goal for the Bruins, but never scored in the regular season. He was an up and down guy between Rochester and Boston. Made his way to Edmonton. Glenn Sather loved to bring in those veterans, as you guys know, in the early 80s, all throughout his term there. So they were looking for a guy to play with Paul Coffey. So a guy named Mike Forbes emerged. He got some playing time with Paul Coffey on the point. Mike was rather offensive. Paul, as you know, very offensive. And the match didn't work, right? You can't have two offensive guys together. So Mike scored one night. Gretzky went, Curry shot, deflected into the corner. Gretzky went into the corner, dug it out. Back to Mike, one-timer. He has a goal. He says he thought he was going to get another one that night, right? He's on the power play with Gretzky and Curry. How can't he? Shortly after his goal, a week or so later, he's sent down to Wichita, where the Oilers had their farm team. And going the other way on the plane to Edmonton was Charlie Huddy. So we know how that worked out because Huddy and Coffey. Yeah.
He never gave up a spot, did he?
So that was it. No more Oilers for Mr. Forbes. But he went on to be a hockey executive, a hockey coach. He had a whole life after that goal that you wouldn't know about. You just saw the 1G on his hockey database page.
Do you have Kenny? In your in your research, did you find any Greek guys? Any one-hit Greek guy wonders?
Well, let me look at the names here at the index quickly. Let's see. I don't see any Greek names in here. Is Surma a Greek name?
You don't see Georgiakis in there anywhere?
I know that
Georgiakis.
I know that McKim is not. I know that Evans is not. I know James is not. McCosh is not. McNeil's definitely not. And Beaton, that's a name from Antigonish, Nova Scotia. So no, this book lacked Greek hockey stars. I have to say.
The Greek content is really low.
Greek content's low. Yeah.
Who would you say, Kenny, from the 39 guys that you wrote about was the most highly touted, if any of them? Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot of guys in here who were first-round picks.
Really?
Right? Who thought they were going to score 500 goals. And there's guys in here who there's one guy who thought the highlight of his hockey career was going to be when he got a tracksuit playing Junior A. He thought, that's as high as I'm going to get.
What? A tracksuit?
A tracksuit when he played in the
Playing Junior A, yeah.
Playing Junior A.
Or tracksuit?
Free tracksuit back in the day. Oh, yeah. Let's see. Well, a name like, as I quickly go down the research here, Christian Dubé. He was a first-round pick of the New York Rangers. He was Canadian Junior Player of the Year. He signs with the Rangers in 97, 98. Well, they got Gretzky, they got Messier. Whenever they need to bring in a center, they just buy a guy. So he's riding the buses and he's thinking, I don't want to ride the bus in the American League. He's a highly skilled guy. He'd won Memorial Cups with Hull. He signs in Switzerland, discovers that he can play in Switzerland as a non-import because his dad, Norm Dubé, had played there, and Christian had played his minor hockey there. So he's a GM now of a team in the Swiss League. So he thought he was going to score a lot more than one. There's a guy in here, Matt Higgins, a first-round pick of the Montreal Canadiens. He thought he was going to score a lot more than one. He had injuries. His back took him apart. A guy like Joey Hishin, who was super skilled for Owen Sound in the OHL just about 5, 6, 7 years ago. He got crushed by a hit in the Memorial Cup one year. He made an incredible comeback just to get one goal. So there's all kinds of ways at looking at this.
Yeah, that's a cool story.
Some guys thought they'd score a ton. Some guys never thought they'd score one. Some guys have the puck framed on their wall. Another guy lost the puck in his backyard playing punt hockey and really couldn't care less. Some guys, kept grinding out to score another one. One guy got stabbed 10 days after he won the NHL goal. No, stabbed with a knife in a bar fight. Like, that's crazy. Yeah, that one made me go, what? So that wasn't a story I thought.
He got his one goal, then got stabbed in a bar fight, never played again.
He played again, but not in the NHL. Yeah, that's crazy. That's a story I never thought I'd come across. But the guy now is totally.
So hold on, Kenny. So obviously, you're a very creative individual. I'll have to tell you. So what's Reader sits in his bed now? I don't know what you're doing in there, but obviously you're doing a little bit of thinking. So you're sitting in there, and then this idea comes to you. Geez, let me see who scored one goal, like just out of the blue. Yeah?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was just an extension of one night only. So if you play one game,
while you're thinking, do you spend a lot of time while you're in those positions handicapping football in your head too?
No, I wish I did.
We wish you did too.
Yeah,
because Billy is having a really bad week. I
heard it was the bad week. No, I'm a horrible sports gambler, but I'm a kid who was a dreamer, and I look at the world of sports through these romantic, crystal clear lenses, right? And maybe that's a little naive, but that's how I look at sports. And these guys in One Night and One to Remember, they lived out my dream, and I wanted them to know that they're not, geez, you only got one goal. They're, wow, you scored in the NHL. For me, that's how I look at things, right? There's two ways to look at life, right? You can say, man, that guy sucks. He only scored one goal. No, first off, he doesn't suck because they made the NHL. You get him on the ice with you at your Sunday night pickup game, you will be done. He does not suck. He scored a goal in the NHL, and that is fantastic. And what was great about this book is, let's face it, there's 39 guys in here, most of whom most people have never heard of, but they have a story to tell. And this little tiny book lets them tell their story. And oftentimes when I said goodbye to them, they'd say, thanks for remembering me. And I thought, wow, that's a nice way to sign off. So I think these guys should be remembered, and their stories should be told. I mean, there's guys who went on to become scientists, brain surgeons, and then there's guys who just stayed in, and then there's guys who stayed in the game. So the goal in a way was a launching pad for what came next. It wasn't just the story of the goal. It was what led to it and what became afterwards.
So I think the number you threw out there was 6,500. Is that you said
skated
that's
in the
many
NHL,
people have skated in the NHL? So 6,500 skated in the NHL. 1,500 of them didn't get a goal. You said, I think was the number two. So you're talking about 5,000 players have scored a goal in the NHL.
Yeah.
So when you consider the NHL has been around for 100 and some years, right? Yeah. That's a pretty elite. You're a pretty elite company. I mean, listen, you scored a goal in the NHL. That is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think it's
32 of them were Leaf guys too, right? About that number.
What's that?
32 in the Leaf guys, he said.
30 Leaf guys in there.
Oh, that's just mean. No, I got Leafs in here. Here.
Okay, what Leafs you got in? What come to mind? The Leafs.
Well, the one story that blows my mind is a gentleman by the name of Les Kozak, and he played with the St. Mike's Majors. And now picture this story if it happens today. Now this happened in the 60s. So he has 1 year of junior eligibility left. He's playing at St. Mike's. So he's playing with Davey Keon and all those powerhouse guys. He leaves the St. Mike's Majors, gives up his last year of junior to go into a monastery because he's going to become a priest. So that story would turn heads now. I'm sure it was a lot more common then. So he's hanging out in the monastery. About 6 months in, he's like, no, not doing it for me. Not doing it for me. So when he makes this, it wasn't doing it for him. So he decides to leave the monastery. Meantime, his old buddies on St. Mike's win the Memorial Cup. So he misses out on the whole Memorial Cup play. Couldn't play in the Memorial Cup, but the Leafs still sign him. So he signs with the Leafs. They send him down to Rochester, I believe their farm team was at the time. Punch Imlach comes down on a Friday night. I'm looking for somebody. We need a guy in the lineup tomorrow night. Les goes out, has himself a nice game, scores a goal or two. So they say, Les, you're coming up to Toronto. So, and he goes with Punch. They make their way back to Toronto. Eventually, he scores a goal for the Leafs. And he's chugging along. He's playing fine. He's fitting in. He's not lighting the lamp too much, but he's having a good little stint with the Leafs. And then one night, I believe he said it was against Detroit, he just gets crushed into the boards. He gets a hip check on the boards. And he still says to this day he blames himself. Says, I should have went to the other side. Anyway, his head gets crushed on the check into the boards. And as you guys know, back in the day, the boards had no give. Secondly, he's wearing no helmet. Down he goes. I mean, it's insanity. They rush him to the hospital. He has to get operated on to basically, he's bleeding on the brain. He is bleeding on the brain. They operate him on. To this day, he says he has a golf ball size hole in his skull. So he's laid up. He's depressed. He can't play hockey anymore. He starts taking classes on the side. Fast forward 55 years later, I'm trying to track down a gentleman by the name of Les Kozak, who scored a single goal for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I come across this Les Kozak on the internet, and it says Les Kozak is the head of whatever. He's this big scientist in Bar Harbor, Maine. I believe it's called the Jackson Institute. He's taught at the University of Poland. He was taught and lectured at the Louisiana State University. He's foremost in this field. And I'm thinking, well, this isn't the hockey guy. Yeah, it's the hockey player. So he went from scoring a goal, having his skull crushed, to becoming a leading scientist in his field. And so that's a Toronto Maple Leaf that I'd never heard of, right? So, and that's a great story. That's a guy that didn't didn't let it all in for him when he could have. I mean,
6 years. I suppose then, Kenny, 6 years in the monastery can inspire an individual then.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of these guys, some of the guys in the book, it's funny. One of the guys said, I just played because that's what I thought everyone wanted me to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was a high selection in the draft, and he quit one year and just hung out at a ski hill in BC. He said, I ran out of money, so I came back to hockey. I didn't really love the game, but he scored his goal. And then there's other guys that just, I mean, the final story in the book is of a guy named Frank Beaton. You guys might remember him. He played in the WHA, played a little bit in the NHL. And when he started, so the story goes, his nickname was Never, as in Frank Never Beaten.
Never beaten?
Yeah, a few years into his career, he became Seldom Beaten. He said when it was time, they nicknamed him Always, it was time to retire. So he sets the record straight on that nickname. But Frank's a guy who grew up in Antigonish County, Nova Scotia, which at that time was as far away from the NHL as you can get. And he made it there. Mm-hmm. And he made it there just on grit and just hard work. And he scored a goal in the greatest league in the world. Now, he uses a few more adjectives to describe how that felt. But yeah. All the respect.
Well, done, Kenny. You just called it the greatest league in the world after that Stanley Cup playoffs and finals. So you might get some people to argue with you. It was not the most entertaining of hockey.
The game has changed. The game has to figure it out because I believe when the game was invented, one team said most goals wins. Still most goals wins, but now there's way too much defensive strategy involved. It's easy to coach defense. It's easy to see why it happens. If I was a coach, I would do the exact playbook that Barry Trotz and the Islanders played. Unfortunately for us, the fans, we suffer because it doesn't look like the 85 Oilers or the 77 Canadians out there. This fire wagon hockey isn't winning anymore, and I wish the league would find out a way to get fire wagon hockey winning, because I think the league's in danger of losing a young generation of fans. I mean, you look at the NBA, it's point, score. NFL, score. NHL, not so much. And I'm sorry, I'm a diehard hockey fan, and people say you don't love the game. I absolutely love the game. That's why I think it needs to evolve a little. After the first lockout, they brought in a bunch of rule changes that worked, but the coaches are awesome. They've adapted. They got to change some stuff up again and make the coaches play catch up again.
So they tried making the equipment smaller, but guys are still cheating on that.
No, the equipment.
You made a comment about this before too. You made a comment about this before too, and I totally agree with this. I think you make the nets bigger.
Yeah,
you make the nets bigger.
Yeah. I'm a traditionalist, and I was always against that. But the size of the equipment now, and the fact that the goalies refuse to kind of get to realistic equipment, even the equipment they measure now is still way too big. So what's the one way you make the equipment smaller? If they won't, you make the net bigger, and you have to. I'm talking, you know, maybe 2 inches on each side, maybe an inch.
You think that'll make a noticeable difference? You think that'll make a difference? How about so far as maybe if you guys obviously, and you do watch the games, the most entertaining hockey, frankly, is 3-on-3, 4-on-4. So if that's the case, you want to get the puck in the net, take a stiff off the ice, play the games 4-on-4. Is that moving too far forward?
I think I don't disagree with that. I think it's just impossible to do with the union, because if you go from 5-on-5 to 4-on-4, to me, off the top of my head, that's 6-7 jobs you're taking away. So I don't see that happen. I think that's maybe too harsh a move, but yeah, it'd be entertaining. You got to remember, NHL coaches are smart. They'll find the way to suck the life out of a game. That's what they're paid to do. They teach defense. There's no more Glenn Sather, go score, guys. Trust your offense. The thing is that worries me, though, is even if you make the nets bigger, if you're the Dallas Stars and you only have 9 shots after 2 periods in a Stanley Cup final elimination game, how does making the nets bigger?
That was bad.
Yeah,
that was just bad.
You got to find a way to invigorate the league offensively and get teams trading goals.
The Lightning are a talented offensive team. I mean, they have but the Lightning are a team that pretty much has it all, though, don't they? They got the physical side. I mean, the Conn Smythe Trophy winner was a defenseman. So what does that tell you about?
Yeah, but hold on. Like if your bonus now in Dallas and you want to win, obviously you know that you can't match up with that team. Half your roster is injured. You got to shut the ice down to have any iota.
And that's just it. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Right.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Is the way to compete and the way to win is to preach defense, preach patience, And that's not the game, the way I don't believe the game was meant to be played. I think the game is meant to be played with beautiful passing and rushing, but the easiest way to stop it and the easiest way to stay and hang around and try to win is defense. So I don't blame the coaches at all for preaching that. That's what I would preach too, but I wish it was flipped around. Of course
not. I mean,
you're right.
That's why they brought the trap in. That's why the Devils were competitive, because they were able to trap.
Exactly.
And,
I wish that they would.
It's not fun hockey, but it's just what it is. And
I doubt it's fun to play. I'm sure the players would much rather play fire wagon hockey, but most of all, it's not fun to watch. And if you're turning off diehard fans that I know who just said, "No, I'm not watching that. It's no fun." I don't blame them. People want to be entertained. It's entertainment, and the league has to realize. I think they do. They had to realize the bottom line is this is an entertainment product, and they have to make it entertaining again. And don't get me wrong, I can see, the beauty and the guts in a block shot. I get that, and that's a great system. It is, but it doesn't mean it's entertaining. It has to be entertaining to watch.
Okay, so saying what we have about the game and the way it needs to change, and probably won't for a while. And we look at what the Maple Leafs have been doing and what they're looking at right now. If I'm Kyle Dubas coming out what I saw in the playoffs, what is my number one priority now? I mean, other than signing Jason Spezza to a 1-year deal.
Yes. See, that's an interesting question. So if you're Kyle Dubas, what are you going to do? Well, I don't really know. But if I'm Kyle Dubas, I know what I'm going to do. But I don't think Kyle Dubas is going to do what the three of us think should be done.
Well, listen, I've got some
what the Greek and I think should be done, at least.
No, but Kyle Dubas has come up with this idea, which is unique, and nobody's ever thought of it before. But he's thinking of making the Maple Leafs a little bit more difficult to play against. What do you think of that?
Well, that's been said. But what's your blueprint for making them more physical to play against? Is it a computer printout, or is it looking at a guy like Josh Anderson, who's coming off shoulder surgery in Columbus, who plays the game just so gritty and awesome and tough, who's coming off a down year because he was hurt early, who's got 1 year left on his contract that you could trade for? If I'm a team in the NHL, I am frothing at the mouth to think that a guy like Josh Anderson is available for trade. He is not what you build your team around, but he's how you win, right? Guys like that are how you ultimately win. I think
our buddy Wayne Simmons would be a nice addition.
Wayne Simmons and Josh Anderson, same thing. But I would like to know and Dubas seems like a reasonable young guy. He's a smart fella, but has he seen enough to trust his philosophy?
That's the problem. He's a smart fella, and sometimes you know what the problem is with smart guys like that? Not only do they want to envision what the future looks like, they want to reinvent it along the way, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes smart guys like Dubas, obviously the kid's barely got like hairs on his pecker, man, and he's GM of the Buds, so he's not a dummy, right? Obviously, right? But the point of the matter is, you got to also slow down and realize the game's been around. Winning hockey's been around for 100 years, man. You can't change the game the way Dubas wants to reinvent it and envision it. He's got to come back this way and realize that the recipe to winning hockey is pretty universal. Tampa Bay showed us this year. St. Louis showed us the year before, right? And until you have the similar ingredients that winning clubs have, until you play the similar kind of hockey that winning clubs play, what are you going to do? You're going to use your analytics department to get you what?
Well, look, that's what I said. I said before these playoffs started that, and I think it might have been on your show, that the Leafs would beat Columbus if the game was played the way the game is supposed to be played. But that's not the way the game's played. So the Leafs had no chance about Columbus, right? So if you're just making a assumption that the game is going to be free flowing and it's not going to get nasty and there's not going to be intangibles that you can't measure, then this Leafs team is going to be great. But that's not the way the game is played. And you can go back as far as you want. I mean, I love my 80s Oilers, right? People talk about Gretzky and Messi, but they don't talk about Lee Fogelin and Kevin McClellan, and they don't talk about those guys enough. Charlie Huddy, Dave Hunter, right? Guys who won you.
Randy Gregg.
You can't win with just skill. And I'd like to think that if I was on the Leafs management and I saw what happened in the playoffs this year, I would learn that you can't win on just skill. And I would go looking for more than just skill. I would look for big, tough guys to round out my bottom six. I'd look for a Josh Anderson. I'd try to sign a Radko Gudas. But the thing with the Leafs is, how much can they really do when they got $56 million tied up in forwards and $15 million tied up in defense, right?
So I got the numbers.
Salaries?
I got the numbers right here. Salary cap space 6.1 million, and roster size 18 to 23. Salary committed to forwards, 51.7 million. Committed to defense, 15.83 million. Committed to goalies, 6.65 million. So They got $6 million to play with, providing they don't make some kind of trade between now and then. And the free agents that would interest them, now they're losing Tyson Berry and Cody Ceci, so they lose two right shot defensemen. They've been needing a right shot defenseman. So yeah, I know. But Alex Pietrangelo, okay, he's I think he would be the number one pick. But is Pietrangelo willing to sign here for the kind of money they would need him to? Gudas, you touched on him earlier. Here's another right shot defenseman. TJ Brody. Now he shoots left, but he plays a lot from the right side. Flames are apparently they can't keep both him and Hamonic. So one of those is going to be available. So there's some of the guys that I'm looking at. Shattenkirk maybe, and maybe Sammy Vatanen are some of the defensive that I was looking at that might be able to help him from that right side. What any of those guys is a guy that you said sign him now, pay what you need to pay, and do it?
Well, I wouldn't count Dubas out of signing anyone because remember he's the guy that signed Tavares, right?
Right.
You'd have to make a move, right? And Nylander seems to be the most obvious choice. What gets me, and it's so Leafs, it's so Toronto, is people hanging it on Freddie Anderson and thinking Anderson has to be moved. Well, he's the logical piece to move because he's got 1 year left. I think the cap hits $5 million, but it's only owe him $1 million in salary because of sign-up bonuses, things like that. So he would be easy to unload. I think it's very Toronto to point to the goalie as the scapegoat.
And who do you replace him with?
Well, there you go. Matt Murray's out there supposedly, but I mean, the Nylander.
Would you do that?
You handcuff
Would
yourself.
You do Murray for Freddie? I don't know.
Sure I would.
Basically, Kenny, who's been on Sportsnet delivering the news as only he can, smooth as silk every night. You're really good at what you do. I commend you. You've been doing it for a long time, smooth. Basically, Kenny, as you know, man, the Greeks are blue chipper, up and comer. I've been telling Tilley this for the better part of 2 years. So you mentioned Radko Dudas. I said it 2 years ago. You mentioned Wayne Simmons. I said that a year and a half ago. I told this guy over there, you can't play that.
We were both saying Wayne Simmons 2 years ago, Billy.
The Greeks, right? You're wrong. You want me to fix this for you? Pay attention a minute, and I'll give you the recipe. If you want the recipe, the Greek will give it to you, plain and simple.
If I recall, the Greek and I ganged up on Joe last time.
You got $6 million in your back pocket, all right? So what you do is you pick up the phone and you look for a stiff in the NHL, stiff GM. There's a few candidates that I got in mind. You call them, and then you tell them Willie Nylander's the greatest thing since sliced bread. If he plays for you, he'll put in 40. He'll say, all right, what do you want? You know what I want? I want you to take his salary. Give me a first-round pick. Give me a defenseman. Give me a little something. Give me futures even. Give me a bag of pucks. I don't care. And a first-round pick. I'll stock my shelves. I'll take that $7 million that you'll pick up, and I'm going to call Pietrangelo and say, listen, man, we need, what do the Leafs need when you think about it? A right-handed shooting first-pairing defenseman. They need championship caliber character in the room. They need a guy with grit on the back end, and they need a guy that brings intangibles into the room, right? Is that not what we all agree on that's missing from the outside looking in? And Pietrangelo checks all those boxes. Now, the only question you'd have to ask yourself is, what is this guy going to look like, say, 2, 3, 4 years from now when we're paying him north of $8 million, and he's pushing 33, 34? Will he become an albatross? And is that a risk you're willing to take? For me, absolutely, hands down. You put him on that blue line with Riley. Everybody else slots in, and you can afford to pay the rest of that blue line minor league money and get the kids to play 12 minutes a shift. And whenever you need two guys, you got Riley and Pietrangelo. If you guys watch, sorry to move all over the place, but if you watch the Tampa Bay playoffs, the best player on the ice was who? The best player in the world was Victor Hedman. Can Pietrangelo in Toronto become Victor Hedman? Yes or no?
I don't know.
I would say.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean.
Hedman's a unique talent, that's for sure.
That sounds like an easy gig, but the problem with that theory is there's one case of beer at the beer store, and 30 GMs are looking to buy it. I mean, and do you really think a GM would nibble on Nylander? I don't know about that. That was a mistake from the get-go. Everybody said that.
So the mistake, once you make the mistake, and I mentioned it on there, it's not necessarily the mistake. That the kid can play a little bit.
Oh yeah, he can play. It's
40 goals. Everybody wants 40 goals. You give up a lot. You give up a lot in your second line.
He can play, but what's he going to do in May and June?
The precedent that was set by giving him that money, then you overpay this guy, overpay that guy. Your salary structure's out of whack. Nobody takes you seriously when you hold out. They hold you ransom, and before you know it, you got no money to take care of everybody else.
But it's the same situation that Chicago ran into. It's the same situation that Pittsburgh ran into. These Billy, you can't keep everybody. You just can't. You can't afford to keep everybody.
There's a big difference there. Chicago and Pittsburgh won. Now, look at Tampa Bay. Braden Point, he was at, I think, 5.5 this year. That's how you win. You got to get those guys, and you got to get them right. And that's a whole different ballgame than when we grew up, right? There was no cap then.
Well, it's like Morgan Riley's contract is beautiful. I mean, they got Morgan Riley at the right time, right? They signed him for a long-term deal at the right time. It's a beautiful contract.
See, the one thing we haven't addressed right yet is just how complicated this offseason is going to be, right? The cap is it's going to be a mess. You got goalies galore out there. You got probably a flat cap. Then maybe it's going to be going down in a year or two. I don't know. That's where the analytics people should come into play, by the way, managing the cap, not on ice stuff. Okay? Leave the hockey to the hockey people. The nerds get out of the way. But anyway, it's going to be a complicated offseason. There's a gluttony of goalies. So maybe, like, people say trade Freddie Anderson. Well, what can you get? There's free agent goalies. So how much can you get for them?
They're not going to come cheap. They're not going to become as cheap. Probably cheap. No, it won't be any cheeper than Freddie.
Well, you're not going to
unless you want a secondary goaltender.
Right. What I'm saying is you're not going to get a boatload for him.
Completely revolutionary thought process going to emanate from the Greek's mouth. 1 through 6 puts the puck in the net. 7, 8, 9 keep the puck out. 10, 11, and 12 spear a guy, slash a guy, play greasy. Defenseman 1, defenseman 2. You play 20 minutes a game, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, you fill in, and you try not to be a liability. I don't know. Pretty goddamn simple, man. And obviously, that's not the recipe Dubas follows. Dubas wants to have guys 1 through 11 to score and skate around. We don't need 11 guys to score, man. It's pretty obvious. You need 5, 6 guys that are dangerous offensively continuously, and you need 5, 6 guys that are imposing physically. You blend them together, baby, and you know what you got? A shot, because you have the upper level talent that's hard to find. The 6 through 12, you can find it anywhere, man. There's guys all over the world, man, that are hungry for a shot to play and stick their nose in a corner, man.
Yeah, well, Kyle Clifford wasn't brought here to score goals, Billy. I mean, I think Dubas has a sense of what's going on there. By the way, Vic just said Vic just says there's a goalie available. David Ayers, the Zamboni driver.
Oh, geez.
Good one, Vic.
All I have to say is I vote for the Greek 2020. I wish you were on my ticket, buddy, because that's how I like the game to be played as well. But I should also note they're trying to bring the Greek and I back by doing a DNA experiment at Jurassic Park, because that's the only way that type of hockey is ever going to come back again. And I wish it would.
Yeah, hold on, Kenny. But if you watch the Tampa Bay Lightning play, they exhibit elements of that kind of hockey.
Yeah. Like, absolutely, modern version. Yeah.
There's certain guys on the back end, like certain guys, even a guy like Shen. There's certain guys on the back end that play a heavy game. There's certain guys up front that are greasy, and there's other guys that skate. And then you got your playmakers. You got your Kuchers. You got your points. You got guys to put the puck in the back of the net. Leafs can put the puck in the back of the net. So in all other areas of the game, right? From what I gather and what I saw, what my eyes told me, they were the second best team on the ice in all other areas of the game except skating hockey.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I listen, I said it off the top. I wish that the game was structured and that teams like the way that the Leafs are built are rewarded. It would be awesome. It'd be fire wagon. It'd be goals galore. The problem is the game is not structured like that. And when you play like that and you run into teams that are going to grind you, especially over a 7-game series, in a league where you can get away with quite a bit of stuff, in a league where you can pound a guy legally and no one on your team does anything, over 7 games, that other team will win a lot. And that's the problem with the Leafs.
So what do we do at that point? So then at that point in time, why don't you put 2 teams on the ice, start the clock, and say first to 5 wins? I don't know.
Hey, Now, that would be fun. However, guess what would happen? The coaches would say, well, we can get to 5 if we wait to capitalize on the other team's mistakes as they try to score.
We'll grind it down. We'll grind it down. We'll play 3-on-3. We'll have one guy in front of the net the whole time.
Yep. First to 5 wins. That could be fun. That's how we played road hockey.
Yeah.
More fights in road hockey too than there is in the NHL now.
I'd argue that was the best. One of the best sporting moments of the year was the NBA All-Star game, where they played to the they played to a certain number, if you remember, to 150, whatever it was. Yeah, the last 3 minutes were gold of that game. Anyway, so that's besides the point.
I don't think. Some tells me that a lot of that stuff you guys are talking about is not going to happen.
I think you're right.
Okay, so let's move on to the draft here quickly, because I want to. That the draft goes tomorrow. I mean, any chance that the number 15 pick, which the Leafs got from Pittsburgh in the Kapanen trade, any chance that they get something reasonable out of that pick?
Well, here's the beauty of the draft, and Dubas said as much today. When you're picking at 15 or you're picking at 55, whatever, the way the game is now with the salary cap, a kid can move into your lineup. I mean, did anyone think Nick Robertson was going to dress for the Leafs in the play-in round against Columbus when he was drafted just last June?
Right.
Greek, you knew that?
Ask Tilley.
Well, he loved Robertson all along.
Okay, cool, man, cool. But you can
he made that suggestion.
Right. The beauty is you can get a player that steps in right away, depending on what your needs are, and because of the cap, right? Because you can get him at cheap.
But here's the problem.
He's a pretty gritty player, Nick Robertson. Nick
Robertson's a beauty. He's a nice player. He's a very mini Marchand-like kind of character. Very mini Marchand. I'm not going to make the comparison. But here's the problem, Ken. Even at 15, you still got the general, which is Dubas, and he's looking for a certain type of hockky player, right?
Right. That's it. What's your philosophy?
When is he going to look and say, you know what? Maybe when's he going to look at the game a little differently and kind of look to a different style of hockey player to offset his needs? Is this ever going to happen, or do you think this guy's just going to keep doubling down?
Okay, let's look here, Billy, because let's look. These are players. I put down some players that are ranked in around 13, 14, 15, 16 from Central Scouting, and these are the players that might be available for the Leafs. So number 13 is Dawson Mercer, center from Chicoutimi. Then there's 14 Caden Gooley, a defenseman from the Prince. Maybe it's Gould.
What's his name? Gould.
Guhle. I think it may be Gould.
If we don't know how to pronounce his name, he can't be that much of an impact player right away. 6'3", 190 pounds, right? Excellent skater with a serious mean streak to his game. Do you like the sound of that? 6'3", 190 pounds, defenseman, a right-shooting defenseman with a serious mean streak. Doesn't that sound kind of good?
Does he
he's left shoot.
When the ref's not looking? Give me a guy like that, man. Give me a couple.
Who was the guy from Slapshot? The guy with the...
Hey, I got news. Guys. Yeah. Can I just break in? I got news. Have you watched the junior game lately? There's more hitting at my co-ed softball league, hitting the bat, right? There's more contact than that. If you think there's no hitting in the NHL, go watch a major junior game, boys.
Really?
It is. There's not a lot of contact going on. I watched the major junior game a few years ago with a GM, and I said, "Is there still hitting in this league?" He's like, "Yeah, I think so." It is. There's no
fighting either, right?
Well, there's the Q basically. It's giving you 15 minutes if you scrap this year.
Right.
So if a kid is going to emerge as a big banger at a junior, he's going to have the body and the mind to be molded into that player. Because man, when I watch junior hockey now, it's not. Look, it's like the NHL. There's not a lot of fighting at the NHL level. So if you're a kid in junior, why would you fight at the junior level? There's not a ton of hitting at the NHL level. So if you're a kid in junior, why would you go around running with your head cut off? It's highly skilled. So if you're going to find that physical specimen, you're going to have to look for a body and a mind that you can turn that into, because I don't think there's a ton of...
If you're filling up the NHL with players from junior who are highly skilled, and that's the type of players you're bringing in, does that not lead to a more highly skilled NHL, you would think?
Yeah, it always does, Joe. It always does. But during the regular season, from October to January, you look fine. At least a couple years ago, looked like the best thing since sliced bread. Nobody goes crazy early. Nobody plays with the but then once it gets closer to playoff time, here's what happens. The ice shrinks. And once the ice shrinks a little bit, Tilley, You got to be able to play a different kind of way. It always happens. We always say, oh, look at the goal scoring in December. And then by playoff time, what happens, man? Here we go again. Same game. Game changes only during the regular season. It's fool's gold. And then by playoff time again, you know what happens? You can't breathe, man. And that's just how it's been going for the longest of times. And that trend will continue well into the future.
The other thing about the kids being drafted now, these kids grew up post-lockout. And I'm talking post-2003, right? These kids, 2004-05. These kids have only been taught skill. They know skill. They're one-piece stick in their hands, a natural thing. It's like my old Sherwood 50-30 in my hand, right? They don't have, like, the kids being drafted now are more skilled than ever. So they didn't necessarily grow up seeing the old bang it out hockey the way we did. So maybe it will adapt. But that, guys, is where I put the onus on the league to reward those skill guys. I love grit in the playoffs. I love it. But there has to be a way to balance the two. Because, sure, you can draft skill guys, but you're going to have to need some meat to go along with them, because like
you know what I find funny? Kenny, it's not a one or the other kind of deal. You can still be a little greasy, play with skill, and go in a corner. There are guys like that. We're not talking about you have to be exclusively one way or another. You got to come out there and throw we're talking about the evolution of complete hockey players, guys that play the whole 200 feet and play in a variety of ways. And those guys seem to be very, very scarce.
Well, you know what I love? All these young skill guys, they come up, and I love it. Don't get me wrong. But when a guy like Corey Perry comes over and leans on you, and you're one of those guys, what do you think's going through their mind? Old man Perry, right? He is on the fantasy list for any analytics guy out there. And what did old man Perry do? He willed those Dallas Stars into the final. He played hard, man. He played tough. And there isn't any analytics chart out there that some guy could present to me that shows Corey Perry is this, Corey Perry is that. And I mean, yeah, grit and that immeasurable factor, whatever it is in hockey, it's always going to be part of it. And you're drafting highly skilled now. That's what you're getting in your pick. You're not drafting any guy coming up with, 300 penalty minutes and a bunch of scraps who hits everything in sight, because those guys don't exist anymore.
Yep. Yeah, Corey Perry had some key goals, man. He had some big
awesome.
goals. So we're just going to assume that Alex Lafreniere goes number one to the Rangers. Is that a given?
Yeah, it's a given. I actually, because I was on with you guys, I was texting with an executive from the Quebec League, because I do my research for you boys.
Attaboy.
The thunder for you guys.
We're glad to hear that, Ken.
He said he's comparable to McKinnon, not as fast, not as explosive, but his IQ is off the charts. And he can break a game wide open. But he said the comparable would be McKinnon, just not quite as explosive or fast.
Well, what about the rest of the top five? What are you seeing anything else? Are you seeing anybody else in there who might
Byfield, they got Sammy Cosentino, our draft guys, got Byfield at 3. Byfield's big body, right? 6'3", 195.
So that'd be Ottawa. Ottawa's got two of the top 5 picks.
They do. There's a guy, Byfield, that maybe, could possibly evolve into a big, heavy player. If that's where the game goes, right? At least he has the frame at 6'3" to put on some weight. But it's funny, my old buddy Terry Ryan, when he got drafted by the Montreal Canadiens in 1995, he strapped 2 weights onto each leg. He taped 2 weights onto each leg for the weigh-in. And then you got an extra 10, 12 pounds out of it. Now guys are trying to weigh in, they're not trying to weigh in. It is what it is. So heavy used to be such a big thing, and now it's not heavy anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so then Tim Stutzel. What do you know about Stutzel?
All I know, he's a kid from Germany that played in the top division in Germany this year. I believe he's a winger that according to my man Sammy Cos, he's a winger that a lot of NHL scouts think could evolve into a center at the NHL level. But he played with men this year, and I think scouts always find that as a bonus.
Yeah.
But that he's Sammy Cos's number 2.
Oh, right. Okay. So and Austin Matthews, remember he played in Sweden.
Right. Austin Matthews played in Switzerland there that year before he was.
Or Switzerland.
Yeah. Coached by Mark Crawford, I believe. So you find a lot of guys out of Sweden playing in the top men's division over there. So yeah, this kid out of Germany, but he's Sammy's number 2. So Germany's turning into a hockey factory all of a sudden. It's kind of strange.
Yeah, that's great though. I mean, well, didn't they came so close to winning that Olympic bronze medal, right? They think they lost in the shootout or something, didn't they? Okay, so before we let you go, Kenny, well, I want to touch on some a little bit of baseball. Talk a little bit of baseball before we go. You guys are heavy into the ball right now over there at Sportsnet. Getting down to the final 8. All right, your Expos shirt. That's good.
My Sean is Expo.
So it's the Yankees versus the Rays. Okay, so you got the Rays have some great pitching, as the Jays found out. The Jays. First of all, let's summarize the Jays season. When you look at what happened in the playoffs, you take everything into account. Would you say that this is probably a pretty damn good season for the kids?
No, everybody seems to think that they are walking on water. They finished 8th in the league. In a normal year, they wouldn't have made the postseason. Was it a disaster of a year? No. Was it the greatest season ever? No. Was it a good year? Yes. But they finished 3rd. And a lot of people seem to think that's the greatest accomplishment, I don't know, since the invention of acid wash jeans. Like, I'm fine with it.
You got a pair of Edwins from the 80s, guaranteed.
Edwin French baggies.
Well, but look at this. So if they win that last game, against Baltimore. They're third in they're second in the division. They play Cleveland instead of the Rays first, and things are completely different. One game.
They would have got their lunch handed to them by any of the 7 clubs. Here's the problem, right? If I'm Montoya, number one, somebody please explain to me. You're sending out, you want to hold Ryu back? I kind of could agree with you.
I got the answer.
Yeah, you bring in Shoemaker. The guy's a vet. I don't mind him. And you take the guy out because your analytics department says he's only good for 3 innings, man. You take the guy out after 30 pitches, man. Are you going to drive me in?
Yeah, but Ray was great. Ray was great. There's nothing wrong with that. The way they pitched that first game.
Leadoff triple.
Shoemaker and Ray both great.
Hey, here's the deal, guys. We can sit here and yell about it all we want. The computer didn't work, and it's all from the computer. And that whole thing was designed. The whole thing was designed by a computer. And guess what? The whole thing was designed by a computer. The computer didn't work. Analytics, in my opinion, has ruined baseball. It's come very close to ruining baseball. Why are the games 3.5, 4 hours? Because there's a pitching change every 3 seconds. Why? Because the computer said so. What happened to the drama of the stolen base, of getting a runner on the old split screen and showing them on first? Well, you don't steal anymore. What happened? Why didn't you sacrifice, bunt that guy to second? No, well, that doesn't work anymore. Well, should I get a single? No, it's a home run or a strikeout, because that doesn't work anymore. Analytics are ruining baseball. They're turning the fan base off because the 3 of us are going nuts because we were at the will of a computer, not the human eye that saw that Shoemaker was just smoking. He was dealing. He was awesome, but the computer said take him out. You can't cross the computer. And what worries me is this analytics stuff, and it already has, eking its way into hockey, but we got to put the old wall up and stop it from completely taking it over the way it's taken over baseball.
No doubt about it, Kenny. 100. You're bang on 100%. But here's a guy that's a little bit interesting. There are guys at analytics, but then you got an old dog like Dusty Baker out of Houston, where he lets his guy go 5 innings. There are some guys that still use the ice. But here's the problem. As you know, Montoya is gone to the Tampa Bay and the Cash School of Baseball. He thinks he's Cash Jr., right? They have the same philosophies. He's done the same things all kinds of years. And until you find the balance between analytics and what the eyes tell you, nobody can tell me and watch that game and tell me Shoemaker did not deserve to go back out there. First of all, Joe, you said Shoemaker and Ray. Here's the problem. If Shoemaker goes an extra inning, 2 innings, 5 innings, and Ray goes, maybe you don't get that explosion first guy out of the bullpen. Maybe the first guy out of your bullpen is a guy that doesn't give it up like Cole gave it up. The bottom line is, no matter what happens, baseball will always be about starting pitching, man. And when you start taking your guys out after 3 innings, here's what's going to happen. You're not going to be able to draw a free agent to town. You're taking guys like Ryu, 4 innings, and you're taking the W away from them. You're bringing a bullpen. Do you think guys are going to want to come here and play for this guy? You're not.
Yeah, but it's a 60-game season. That's why we saw what we saw. These moves aren't being made in a 162-game season. You can't go through your pitching like that.
No. If you watch next year, if this guy burnt the bullpen in 60 games, every single guy in that bullpen, their arm is hanging. Yeah. And if he tries to do this for 160 games,
right. He's not going to do it for 162 games. That's my whole point. And this was an anomaly. This season was what it was. And the fact that the Jays made it is maybe has something to do with the way they handled the bullpens. Maybe they handled the pitching all the way through.
The Greek makes an awesome point, and it's the best point out of his latest epic rant. Guys aren't going to want to sign here. What if you're a starting pitcher? You serious? You're going to pull?
But that was what you saw is how we're going to get next.
But one thing I tweeted out after this, and again, there's no computer readout for this. There's no analytic for this. If you're on the Blue Jays, right, and you're out in left field, you're at first base, and you see that Shoemaker's being taken out after 3 innings of that, what does that do to your psyche? What does that do to you? But the computer people will tell me that doesn't matter, so I'm wrong again. That's all I have to say.
Well, that does matter. I mean, obviously, that's there has to be a little bit of mix there between intuition, momentum, what's going on in the field, what's happening with the rest of the team. All that stuff has to be part of the mix.
Joseph, do you know how many World Series titles Kevin Cash has won? 0.
He's waiting for that first one, Billy. He's waiting for that first one.
And you know how many after the Yankees?
Well, maybe this year.
After the Yankees mopped the floor with these guys, let me tell you about successful baseball. If anybody watched the Yankees game 2, late in the inning, you were talking, Reader, about the swing and miss. The most impressive thing was their power guys choking up to put the ball in play, spoiling pitches in that 8th inning to get the tying run on base when they're down against Cleveland. That's the kind of baseball that you want to play. Yankees going to mop the floor with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay can't measure up anywhere on the diamond. There's not
pitching. Starting pitching. After Garrett Cole, I like Tampa's starting pitching.
The Yankees, out of the 10 pitchers, the Yankees got the best pitcher in the world, and there's not one Tampa Bay player that can crack the Yankees starting 9. Name them. Name one guy that you put on the Yankees starting 9 from Tampa Bay.
Okay, are we bearing the lead? Because are these going to throw at each other's heads? Remember that this year? 100 miles per hour to guy's head. What's the analytic for that? What's the analytic for, man, I don't want to dig in too much against Chapman if he comes in. What's your computer readout on that? There is a human element that we're forgetting about in baseball. And as fans, I grew up, I hated math. I love sports, but there's no math in it. I had to figure out a batting average. Big whoop. Now it's a computer readout of every game. You're turning me off, and you're turning millions of people off with this analytics crap.
Well, I love batting average. I love ERA. And WHIP is good. And, I like all that stuff. It's because I like to follow that stuff, and I like to see. I like every day in the box scores. I like to see where for example, the Jays how these guys are hitting, and I saw like big improvement between when the season first started and towards when it ended. And then it was good.
It's funny,
part of it.
Guys that have never played the game are ruining it for guys that do play the game. Everybody that's come up with all these analytics, you know what they were. They never picked up a baseball in their life. They couldn't throw a baseball past 32 miles an hour, and they're getting gotchied in high school. And now they've completely reinvented the game. So in other words, what we're doing is we're trusting people that have never played the game to teach us how to play the game. Well, way to go.
So Billy, are you telling me that you don't bring analytics into play when you're coaching your East York Bulldogs?
And here's the number, absolutely, Joe. But here's the number one analytic. If you want to figure out how your starting pitcher's doing, here's what you're doing. You know why you can tell? You can tell how he's throwing by the reaction of the at-bats, by the hitter's swing, whether they're on him, by his body language. I don't need to read that stat telling me how he's going to look. I have my eyes to tell me how he's going to look. And if he looks tired, he looks shaky, or the ball's coming off their bats, you know what? Here, we're going to bring another guy in there. Pretty simple, man. Pretty simple. In every sport, hockey, football, we're trying to reinvent the wheel, man. In everything we do, we're trying to reinvent the wheel. These progressive thinkers have hijacked all of professional sports. These libtards, they've hijacked everything, man. Just leave some things the way they were for us, man, that love sports the way it used to be played. Please, thank you very much. Go ahead, Mr.
All right. That's beautiful.
Listen, can I just say, Joe? Basically, the guy who wasn't invited to the party back in high school has found his way into the party with analytics. The world still needs help with getting to the moon, with getting to Mars, with science. Work in that. Right. Leave sports to us. We were here all along.
Go to the moon, buddy. Go to the moon, man.
Go to the moon.
Leave baseball alone. Seriously. Okay, so let's look at these matchups here. Yankees Rays. It sounds like we're unanimous here for the Yankees. Yeah, okay. Unanimous for the Yankees. Astros.
I'm not going against the Yankees after what the Greek just said. No way.
Well, murderers row, man. Those guys are scary, right?
Yeah, they're
Judge,
scary.
Boyd, Stanton, Urshela, Sanchez.
They got
that's a scary lineup.
Obviously, they got the best lineup in baseball this side of the Dodgers, without a doubt. But here's the problem. As you mentioned earlier, Yankees in terms of their starting pitching is not deep. So you better get Cole to win. Cole cannot lose a game in that series because he's going to pitch tonight and he'll come back 4 or 5 if necessary. If Cole loses a game, man, big trouble.
Think they'll pull him after 35 pitches?
Probably not. I think give him a little more, Kenny.
The Rays have they're going to go with obviously Snell in game 1 and then Glasnow and then Morton. And those are like 2 guys that they could easily win games 2 and 3. And if you bring back Cole again for game 4, then you got 2 wins and it might come. I mean, listen, this could be a tight series.
Absolutely, Tampa Bay obviously they're a rather pesky club with a lot of guys under the radar, but when push comes to shove, man, Yankees just got more all over the field than Tampa Bay, except starting rotation.
Yeah, for sure. That lineup is scary. Okay, Astros versus Oakland. I think Astros the least popular team in Major League Baseball. Everybody wants them to lose, and I think they're going to lose against Oakland.
I would pick Oakland, but I would love the storyline of the Astros winning and the Astros facing off against the Yankees because it's the 2 most hated franchises in baseball. And everybody would cheer for the Yankees outside of Houston. I'm convinced. The story there, if it was Houston and the Yankees it's just would make for beautiful TV.
Yeah, no, this is interesting. Yeah, people cheering for the Yankees. Imagine that.
Yeah.
People outside of New York cheering for the Yankees. Okay, National League, Padres, Dodgers. I mean, Padres had a nice series win there, but they're no match against.
But Dodgers, you know what's interesting about the Padres is they made it through that series without using their 2 starters, right? Clevenger and. They didn't have to use their 2 top starters, so that's kind of interesting for me. I like that takeaway.
Here's the problem.
Buehler, Kershaw, May, Gonsolin.
Yeah. Here's the problem. Forget about Gonsolin and this. You got Buehler and you got Kershaw. Albeit against Milwaukee, he looked like the Kershaw, not of old, the Kershaw we've never seen before in the playoffs. Because historically, when this guy pitches in the playoffs, he gets lit up. He looked unbelievable against Milwaukee. If you have that Kershaw come back against the Dodgers are in trouble. But here's the issue. San Diego's put together a rather impressive lineup, 1 through 9, too. People forget they were record-wise up until the last week the second best team in the league. It'd be a beautiful series if they had the full complement. If Clevenger was healthy, if the other kid was healthy. But without starting pitching, man, it's hard to compete with that Dodger team. I don't know the status of those guys. Do you know if they'll be back?
They're a go, are they not, for this series?
I don't know. I can't tell you. Wire says they're still questionable. I don't know if they're on the postseason roster.
Wow. Okay. Well, that makes a difference. Okay, Marlins versus Braves. Braves is just one of the. Look, okay. I think the Dodgers beat the Padres, and I think the Dodgers beat whoever comes out of the Marlins versus Braves. The Braves won 4 of the last 5 games against the Marlins. Max Fried, Ian Anderson, that's a tough combination, right? A couple of tough pitchers there. So
I think this might be the most unsexiest series in recent history. Marlins Braves. I think it's a miracle that the Marlins are still playing. What with the COVID scare they went through this year. But
are you talking Billy and Ospino sexy? Is that what you're talking?
Well, yeah. Atlanta, wasn't that where the Marlins went out that started this whole COVID thing, or was that St. Louis? But anyway, yeah.
I'll tell you this. If we had this conversation, about 3 months ago, trying to preview playoff and series winners, the Miami Marlins would have been the last team to come out of anybody's mouth. They're probably 10,000 to 1 just to make the playoffs. Unbelievable story, really. You got guys they're picking up from parking lots, DFAs, anywhere. And you know what's a testament to, man? You want to talk about analytics? You know who? If you want to talk to me about analytics, you know who the man is. Because he brings a different element too. Don Mattingly, Donnie Baseball, hands down the best manager in baseball. You take that Miami Marlin team from the parking lot, man, to competing for a World Series. Are you kidding me, man? Kudos.
Yeah, that's a surprise. Yeah, good. But their time is done, I would think. Anyway, all right. Listen, but Kenny, I know we gotta let you go, buddy, and we want to thank you for being with us once again. The book is called
There it is. One to remember.
One to remember. There you go. One to remember. I got it right here.
Yeah.
Stories from 39 NHL players who scored one big league goal. There it is. One to remember. Listen, thanks for joining us, Kenny. We would just we'll have you back again soon if that's okay with you. Remember, my friend, we got a foursome club link for you for being a guest on our show. And remember that we're all together, guys.
Thank you, Joe. Like that just.
Promotional consideration provided by ClubLink. ClubLink. One membership, more golf. Excuse me. Have you heard of the new Divot app?
There's a Divot app?
No, but there is a divot. And we're going to have to do something about that. It's simple. Just pick up the divot and replace it. All sorted. Have a good round.
The rail is I am what I am from an 8th position. 9th is St. James Gate and Cash is 10th. Field across the backstretch.
I took Buzz, the number 10 horse, in the 7th race at Mohawk. Jonathan Drury, the driver. Buzz just couldn't overcome that tough number 10 post position. J.P. Brussel would go on to win this race, holding on for the victory. Buzz had to settle for 5th. Whoops! Hey, better luck next week, right? My record now is 4 wins, 2 seconds, 4 thirds, 2 fourths, 2 fifths, and 1 sixth. That would be in 15 races so far this year. But so in the top 3, 10 out of 15. That's not bad, okay? And then 4, 5, 6 in 5 out of 15. So there you go. There's J.P. Brussel taking it. All right. Now this week I'm going to go with, what's that, Billy?
Horses for a living, Joe.
I know I should do that. I should be putting, but we're going to get to picks later on. We're going to talk about some football picks later on. See how those work out for you. Anyway, this week I'm going to go with the horse on the rail. Yes, let's go for a good post position this time. I'm going to take the number 1 horse, Outlaw Gunpowder, in Tuesday night's opening race at Mohawk. This horse has 52 career wins. He's a 9-year-old gelding, including 2 wins in his last 4 races. Jonathan Drury drives, and Jody Cullen, the trainer of Outlaw Gunpowder. Okay, Billy, let's get back talking to some more sports here. First of all, I want to touch on the NBA. The Heat crushed the Celtics The Heat crushed the Lakers in Game 3, and it's now we got ourselves a series, right?
Yeah.
And
it looked like a club, Joe. It looked like a club that played with the mentality that they were up 2-0. Right.
Well, you know what? We talked about this earlier. You said, Anthony Davis has to be he has to be the star of the team if the Lakers are going to win this. Jimmy Butler was unbelievable. Remember, Goran Dragic and Bama Adebayo both missed this game. Kelly Olynyk, the Canadian kid, steps up. Here's an interesting story. I worked in Lethbridge many years ago, and Kelly's dad, Ken Olynyk, was the coach of the Lethbridge Pronghorns basketball team, right? University of Lethbridge Pronghorns. And I got to know Ken pretty well back then. It's funny to see his kid playing in the NBA now and playing well. 17 points and 7 rebounds. Again, Goran Dragic, Bama Adebayo out of the. Now, you think that he can pull this off? You think this is a series changer right here in Game 3 win?
You got to. This whole story will unfold and be better understood after Game 4. If the Heat can somehow even the series, then you got something to talk about. Maybe by Games 5, 6, Dragic and Adebayo can get on the court, maybe help out. It'd be akin to the Raptors competing against the Lakers without Ibaka and Lowry. That's what Dragic and Adebayo represent to Miami.
And they won Game 3 without him. That's awesome.
Again,
Jimmy Butler was incredible.
The Lakers have a hard time winning when LeBron James and Anthony Davis are not the 2 best players on the court. And last night they were not. Jimmy Butler was the best player on the court last night. LeBron was second, and you'd make a case AD was maybe fourth, fifth, or sixth. If that trend continues, and don't look for it, but if that trend continues, Miami's a very pesky team. Coach Spoelstra is very creative, and they got a lot of dog in them. They got a lot of fight in them. So I wouldn't put nothing past them. But again, it's still an uphill battle.
Well, here's Jimmy Butler with a triple-double, 40 points in a triple-double. This is the first time ever in a finals game that LeBron another player has had more points, more rebounds, and more assists in a game than LeBron James. That's pretty interesting.
And not only this, but the thing, as a fan from the outside in, the thing that bothers me about watching Laker basketball is every goddamn time LeBron takes the ball to the rack or does something, this guy turning around with that face, crying for fouls. I'm guessing, like, there's not, like, he wants to foul this guy on every.
Welcome to the NBA, Billy.
I've never seen, there's a lot of crybabies in basketball, make no mistake about it. But there's nothing bigger than LeBron James. And LeBron, it's starting to look bad on you. You're crying for fouls. You're crying after every play. Just play the game, man. Just play the game and stop doing that face, man, every time you think you're not getting a call. This guy not only does it in the game, but he also has the nerve to pick up the phone and call the league office and say, I'm not getting calls, this, that, the other. Let me tell you something, LeBron. The NBA as a brand is bigger than you. It'll be here when you're not here. Take it easy, my man. Take it easy. Okay, you're good. You're great, but take it easy with the attitude, man. Take it easy. Go and play the game, man, and stop crying and complaining every time you take the ball to the hole and you don't get a call, man. Sometimes, you know what, man? It's basketball. There's contact to be made sometimes. All right?
Well, you know what? It's every player. You name any player in the NBA, everybody does the same thing, and it's like, if you're a great player in the NBA, generally speaking, you get the calls, and that's just the way it is. And when you're not getting the calls, it's an unusual situation. You're not used to it. It's tough to handle. But the bottom line is this: like, LeBron James has been in the finals 10 times. This is now his 10th trip to the finals. He set all kinds of records, and he's taken some teams that had no business being there into the NBA finals. So LeBron James is an amazing athlete, amazing player,
But let's talk about, if you want to talk about the LeBron legacy, he's taken his team to the finals 10 times, but he's 3-6, number one. So there's a lot of shit to unpack there. LeBron had to leave Cleveland to go team up with Dwayne Wade, that was an established star, pull Chris Bosh out of here to create a super team to win his first title. So LeBron, yes, he took his teams to his titles, but the only way he got that first championship ring is he bought that ring, number one. Number two, you got the best player in the world besides you, Anthony Davis. So let's take it easy on the LeBron pedigree and the hierarchy in terms of being the greatest of all time, man. He's no Michael Jordan. He's not there yet. He never will be. Okay, let's take it easy.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I think he's right there with Michael Jordan. If not. I mean,
close.
Michael Jordan. You know, he was surrounded by an all-star cast right from the get-go. He always had Scotty. He always had Rodman. He always had that, cast, Steve Kerr. I mean, he had a great team around him. You're looking at LeBron James. He willed the Cleveland Cavaliers into the NBA championship. He willed them to that championship. They was not a championship caliber team.
Yeah,
LeBron James did that, won that title single-handedly. I don't think you can ever say that Michael won single-handedly. Michael always had a supporting cast there. I think both players are unbelievable. They're both 1-2 in terms of greatest players of all time. But I certainly think you have to say LeBron's right there. He's right there. He's a tremendous talent. Anyway, okay. So a couple of notes here. I want to talk about we're going to get to the NFL in a bit. First, I want to talk about Toronto FC. Toronto FC. All right, Toronto FC beat Philadelphia Union at the Reds' new home in Connecticut stadium. I don't know if you watched the game. I watched the game on, I think it was Saturday night. It was really made to look a lot like BMO Field. It really had the feel of BMO Field there. And the Reds dominated the first half. They trailed 1-0. Philadelphia Union got the first goal, and early in the game. But then in the second half, Alejandro Pozuela scored in the second half. TSC is now got points in 5 straight games. They're 9-4-2. They're tied for first overall, and first in the East and first overall. And it was the first of 5 games in 16 days, so they're going to be very busy. The only problem is Justin Morrow, Josie Altidore both left the game with injuries, hopefully not serious. It did sound like Altidore's wasn't too serious. I'm not sure about Morrow's, but it sounded like Altidore should be back for the next game, so we'll see what happens. French Open. Canadian content's gone, but Leila Annie Fernandez and Jeannie Bouchard both put up a good showing there. Both made it to the 3rd round. And listen, Canadian tennis is keeps showing us again and again and again. These kids keep coming up. These kids are, the future of Canadian tennis. And how can that be? I mean, here's in a climate where we only get to play tennis 6 months a year, right? So it's amazing.
Let me quick shout out. As you know, the Greeks all over the sporting map, like my tennis too. Every now and then, put a couple of 20s, man. We'll talk about that later. Special shout out to the best 2 hours that I've had in a long time watching television. And that's to my man, Hugo Gaston from France. 5-setter, unfortunately lost to one of the best players in the world, team, in 5 sets. Unbelievable. 20-year-old journeyman, Joe. Never hasn't cracked a 200 in his lifetime. Down 2 sets to one of the best players in the world. Rallied back. You've seen there was about maybe 700-800 fans at Roland Garros, and they sounded like 7,000-8,000. It was beautiful theater, and I love stories like that when an underdog comes and he competes in that kind of way. Best drop shots, just a great 2 hours of entertainment. Sports guys like me love to see guys like Hugo Gaston out of nowhere, man, just captivating us for a couple hours. So shout out to him.
Yeah. So okay, another thing I wanted to it actually reminded me of 1984, the French Open. Yvonne Lendl playing John McEnroe. Lendl had never won a Grand Slam event before that. He fell down 2-0 to McEnroe, and he battled back to win that match in 5 sets. McEnroe, by the way, never won the French Open, and that was his best shot. And Lendl won that match in 5 sets, went on to win 11 majors. That was a career turning point for him. He's a guy who always knocking on the door, always a bridesmaid, never the bride, always knocking on the door, never winning that big title. Finally got it done at the French Open in '84. It's a moment that sticks out in my mind as one of my favorite.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. There's something still magical about Roland Garros in terms of when there's a disputed call, the referee comes down from the box, looks down and sees the mark on the court. It's kind of a throwback in terms of a sporting life that's been lost kind of to technology in some respects. Like, every other tournament uses that ball watcher where it tells you where it landed. It's nice to see. It's nice to see a 300-pound stiff come out from his box, get a little exercise, look at the line, and then go back up. It's awesome, man. It's awesome.
They're not like major league umpires. Okay, and now Prince Wales Stakes. Our buddy Mighty Hart is now 2/3 of the way through to the OLG Canadian Triple Crown. An impressive performance at Fort Erie Racetrack in the 85th Prince of Wales Stakes. Now, this is the One-Eyed Wonder Horse ridden by Daisuke Fukumoto. Great finishing kick to pull away and win by 7.5 lengths. Remember, Mighty Hart, one-eyed horse, and he's just got a lot of love, man. It's a beautiful story here. Fukumoto, another guy who's never been here, never ridden a horse of this ilk. Josie Carroll, the trainer of this horse, and has a chance now to wrap up the Canadian Triple Crown, which would be the first Canadian Triple Crown winner since Wando back in 2003. So that's been that long since there was a stretch there where we had quite a few of them, but there hasn't been Dan Smartley, Izvestia, but we haven't had a Triple Crown winner now since Wando in 2003. Hard to believe, but now Mighty Hart can wrap it up on October 24th at Woodbine in the Breeders' Stakes, but a real impressive performance. And this was a horse race until they got into the stretch, and that Mighty Hart head to head, and it looked like it looked like it could be
and comes to call on the outside. Clayton is asked to dig deep. Here on the outside comes Mighty Hart. Mighty Hart very calmly on the outside with no urging from Daisuke Fukumoto. He glides right on by. He was never worried. Mighty Hart, mightiest again. He's 2/3 of the way to the Canadian Triple Crown. Mighty Hart easily handled.
All right. Our old pal Frank Saliba with the call. It's nice to hear Frank's voice. Haven't heard him for a while. And a long-time Standardbird caller over at Mohawk and Woodbine.
One of the best.
Yeah, Frank's good. That was a good race, but yeah, it was Clayton that he was head-to-head with heading down the stretch, but just passed him like he was standing still. Mighty Heart. What a great horse that is. Beautiful story. Okay, Billy, we're down to the NFL picks. It was now Spreads has a competition now. The competition is Beat Billy, and what I want to know is there anybody who didn't beat Billy? It was kind of one of those weeks where you just want to bury your head in the sand and say, "Could we just forget about this week? What happened?"
I'll tell you this, man. The only thing worse in the Greeks handicapping the better part of the last month is the Dallas Cowboy defense. I don't know what's worse. Just extreme. But here's the beautiful thing: there is a silver lining to this dark, ominous cloud. That there's a lot of people that have a little bit of envy towards the Greek, Joe. Apparently, there's a lot of people that don't like the Greek. This is what I hear, anyways. There's a lot of people that think the Greeks. Listen, there's a lot of people that think the Greeks are morons. I don't know how they could ever get that idea, man. Usually, most of the things that come out of my mouth, I'm like poetry in motion. But that's besides the point. So there's a handful of yo-yos that, you know what they do, and they laugh at me. They text me. That's okay. I'm a big boy. And they bet the exact opposite of what I bet. So if you're betting the exact opposite, I'll take the credit for that, too. It's a long season, Joe Tilley, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. The Greek will be back. Now he's pissed off. Now I'm pissed off. Coming up at 1-6 week, 8-16 overall, and I gotta watch the Cleveland Browns put up 50 points in Dallas against that McCarthy.
No, 49. It's only 49. There's only 49. Billy, give your Cowboys a credit.
Unbelievable, NFL, unbelievable.
Well, you know what? You keep going to the well, buddy. You keep going with your Cowboys. It's gonna. It's thinking sooner or later, and you keep going against my Bills. What are you thinking? Bills are a great team, man. They won again. They're 4-0.
Absolutely. Kudos to Buffalo. They're always a tough game to travel to the Raiders. Tight game. Buffalo opened up in the end. Kudos to them. They got a legitimate claim to be considered as one of the challengers to the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC. The Super Bowl, as we know in the AFC, the Super Bowl is going to go through Arrowhead Stadium. It's going to go through Kansas City. Kansas City's the best team in the league, but don't sleep on the Bills because the Bills are right behind them. The Bills are right there. And in 60
Bills, Ravens, they're close, but they're not the Chiefs, man. They're not the Chiefs. Nobody's going to knock out the Chiefs.
Here's the thing. It's funny. Josh Allen's a funny guy because if you put that Buffalo defense, their offense, their weapons, 60 minutes, they could beat anybody. And the difference with the Bills this year is the fact they're going to have, by all accounts, if the season goes the way we all think it should, they're going to have a home playoff game for once. They're not going to have to travel and win wild card games. They're going to have a divisional round game where they're only going to need 2 wins to get in the Super Bowl. 1 at home and 1 in Arrowhead. That's it. They're not going to need to go on the road as a wild card team in 3 different destinations to get to a Super Bowl. They got a legit shot. As for the NFC, 1-3, you know how disappointed I am. You know I'm a big Cowboy fan at heart. But still, it's too early in the year to give up on this team because I'll tell it to you like this. Do we believe the Rams?
Well, Dak has been unbelievable. Dak is great. Couple of little miscues here and there, but he's been great. Like that one interception at the end of the game, that wasn't his fault. That wasn't his fault.
Do we believe that Seahawks are legitimate and the Rams are a good team?
Seahawks legit, Packers legit, Rams legit.
So again, the Cowboys 1 week ago had the Seahawks 31-30. They had them fourth and 7 with 2 minutes left. So there's not a big disparity. All that Dallas team's got to do, they're lucky they're in the worst division in pro sports, number one. All that team's got to do is figure out the defensive side of the ball, get a guy like Sean Lee healthy. They're depleted at linebacker, depleted in the secondary, both starting corners out. Until they address that defense and put a reasonable product, they're going to have problems. But in terms of the offensive side of the ball, there's still very few teams as dangerous in the Dallas Cowboys. So it's still early. Yeah,
well, Yeah, and the Eagles got to win too, so they're going to have to contend with the Cowboys. Are going to have to contend with them. So, what do you think of the Patriots and Chiefs? Any chance of Patriots? I don't think the Patriots can win that game.
Well, especially now that you consider with the Cam Newton testing positive for COVID, game been delayed, pushed back an hour. Here's the only thing that, from a gambling perspective, here's the only thing that I would look at. All the money's pumped towards Kansas City. I don't know what the number's up to, 12, 13, maybe even higher. Sometimes when all the money goes in one direction, sometimes the opposite happens. A late cover by New England wouldn't surprise me. If they kept the game closer than advertised, it wouldn't surprise me in the least. But again, that's not something that I'd hitch my wagon to either way. I do, however, like the Falcons to compete and pull an upset in Green Bay. Falcons are 0-3, season on the line.
They're desperate.
They're desperate, season on the line, and I'll tell you this. Not only if I keep making mistakes, I might lose my job. Little Lloyd's still out there somewhere, man, trying to position for the Greek job. But this guy out of Atlanta has been on the hot seat.
Give me a call, Lloyd.
This guy out of Atlanta has been on the hot seat for 2 years. If he starts 0-4, he can get the car by the owner on Monday saying thanks for your years of service. See you later, man.
Yeah, but Aaron Rodgers, man, Aaron Rodgers is so cool, calm, and collected this year. He looks like really looks good.
You know
this
what?
Year, yeah.
Give me the touchdown there, man, and I'll take the desperate team.
All right. Okay, coming up this week from Spreads. Okay, Game 4 of the NBA Finals. Lots of football, both NFL, NCAA. Now go to the Tilley Billy site on spreads.ca. Just click the link on this posting. And you'll see you can see the Beat Billy's NFL picks there. Take a shot on and bet $25 on any sport. Qualify for a $10 risk-free NFL bet, and of course see if you can beat Billy. Don't forget to tune in next week to the show and see how you did. Before the games start, build up your bankroll. Give blackjack a try. There's other games to try there. And if you go deep into the NBA markets, you can make all kinds of fun little side bets. You can also wager on tennis, golf, and other sports, soccer. Now, the Tilley and Billy Show is now available for streaming across the Barnburner Radio's 122 platforms, including iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, and TuneIn. Don't forget to download the official Barnburner app. The official Barnburner app is also now available for download via the App Store on Apple iOS devices, in addition to Google Play on Android devices. And, of course, our good pal Tommy Gunn
Joe
says, what's that?
Hold on, don't forget. You're always forgetting, man. We're going to get in trouble for this. Also available on Roku sticks.
Roku sticks, yes, of course. Yeah, good.
Absolutely.
Our good pal Tommy Gunn says, music can help you get through these tough times. Tommy says, play your favorite tunes, play them loud. And here's Tommy with Love Conquers All, available on iTunes and Spotify. Enjoy, folks. We'll see you next week. Happy birthday, Tommy. Until they come down from the sky, it's up to us to know.